Howdy everyone, I go by Foxxy here on YouTube. I am a proud and very happy owner of this 22 Royal Enfield Classic 350, but I would be a full-blown liar if I said that this was a flawless motorcycle. In my reality, I don't believe that there is a perfect motorcycle. Even some of my favorites, the Yamaha VMAX, XSR 900, the ultra cool Triumph Thruxton, and of course this classic 350 is right up on there on my list of favorite bikes. Look, I can gripe about something on any of these bikes, so for this video, I'm going to talk about some of my favorite and least favorite things about this lovely Royal Enfield of mine. First, let's talk about what drew me into the Classic 350, possibly my favorite aspect about this bike. That is the look. I mean, come on, this bike is gorgeous. There's no two ways about it. It is just a visually stunning bike that commands a lot of attention. It stands out from the pack, and it's even won me first place in a bike show, which primarily consisted of nothing but Harleys, but still, the style of that bike alone makes it look straight out of the 50s or 60s, resembling something like what the company Matchless used to make back in that time frame. If you are lucky enough to have found yourself a Signals color on the Classic, you're probably going to get a lot of military buffs asking about the motorcycle as well, for obvious reasons. And by the way, the attention you get from a bike like this absolutely doesn't come from just the motorcycle biker type crowd. And people who know nothing about motorcycles, or maybe don't really have any interest in them, will look at something like this and instantly become intrigued. You know, they smile, they want to talk more about the bike, where it comes from, how old is it, what is it? I've even had people ask to take photos of the bike. It's a huge conversation piece just from the looks of it alone. Which, yeah, maybe that's a bad thing for those of you who are extremely antisocial, and if by chance you are, just know that if you have a bike like this, you are fully opening yourself up to all forms of conversation, whether you like it or not. There are a few color options that maybe help with that, like the stealth black one, for example, but then you're kind of turning a bike like this into basically an all-black blob, and it really takes away from the look of this otherwise striking motorcycle, but to each their own. While I love the looks of the bike, one thing I'm not super thrilled about is the weird, quirky quality control issues that I've noticed. Now, before I say anything, this mechanically has been a very reliable bike. Never had any issues with the transmission, the engine, or other key aspects that allow this motorcycle to run and operate properly. However, when we went to change out the rear suspension back in pre-episode 6, we noticed that the factory over-torqued the bolts, which did flex the bracket a bit. Now, okay, yeah, this isn't necessarily something to cry over, I get it. But what does suck, and is a topic of concern, is that certain years of these classic 350s were plagued with the dreaded speedometer sticking issue. Unfortunately, yes, my bike is included in that mix. So what happens here is that the bike suffers from the speedometer sticking or skipping in a way to where it'll show you're going like 95 miles an hour, but in reality you're going maybe 55. Then when you're stuck at a stoplight, it's still reading like 30, 35 miles an hour. Everyone has a theory as to why this problem occurs and various different methods on how to fix it. Personally, I do know exactly what's causing the issue to my speedometer, and I've technically found a workaround to where the issue happens significantly less frequently, though this entire speedometer subject is maybe for another time, just because it is a lengthy thing to talk about. I've heard on occasion other quality control issues, mostly with electronics, like relays going bad, or I've seen, personally, brand new bikes off the showroom floor with tiny little defects in the paint, usually centered around the accent paint lines on areas like the fenders and the gas tank. These things happen. I mean, look, it's a cheaper bike, and despite it not being a huge brand yet in the States, these are definitely mass produced. To be honest, though, I've seen worse quality control issues or even low mileage catastrophic failures on bikes far more expensive from premium top tier brands. Just saying. This next thing applies mostly to those of you who do wish to modify your motorcycle, whether that be for style, comfort, and or performance. Another one of my favorite things about these 350s, and Royal Enfield in general, is that aftermarket parts, and in some cases, Royal Enfield branded accessories or upgrades, are pretty damn affordable, and usually very easy to obtain. Most of the parts I've bought were from Hitchcock Motorcycles, based out of the UK, and I never had an issue with long delivery times or outrageous shipping cost, at least here in the States. There are a handful of other vendors or companies that you can buy from. Baxter Motorcycles is an amazing source for parts, especially if you are getting into the 650 platform. Also, when I say that the parts are affordable, let me give you an example of something here. The full exhaust, DNA Stage 2, Performance Cam, and Fuel X Lite cost a total of, $900, maybe $1,000, not counting shipping. Just the exhaust that I want for my Yamaha Bolt, the Bassani Street Sweepers, are $825 alone, again, not counting shipping. You can really deck these 350s out to better suit your needs in whatever aspect you want, and you're not really going to break the bank at all. And look, I get it. Some of you may say, well, why are you dumping all that money into this bike when you could have bought insert whatever bike here instead? Yeah, that argument doesn't hold much weight. Chances are, most of us already know this. In general, the average motorcycle is a money pit already. You're never going to get back what you put into it. But most of us who modify our bikes without the intention of selling already know this. So the comments about buying a bigger bike are more beating a dead horse than they are ever helpful. In reality, no one's buying a 350J series to mod it expecting the power to be comparable to a Hayabusa, much less, a CBR 600. It's not only unrealistic, it's stupid. Which brings me to another aspect about the Classic that I'm not exactly fond of. Do all you want with the bike, either of the two big bore kits on the market, the Performance Cam exhaust, all that fun stuff that claims to increase horsepower and torque. Yeah, you will increase the acceleration of the bike, but the top speed will always remain the same. What do I mean? Well, for those unaware, certain bikes in the 350J series lineup, such as the Classic, Meteor, and I think the Bullet, all have a speed limiter which is set to 75 miles an hour on the dash. I've been told that the Hunter doesn't have that limiter for God knows what reason. Now, the limiter can, however, be bypassed by removing the fuse to the ABS, but it's not recommended for a handful of reasons. Furthermore, this limiter in general, depending on where you live, can be problematic for those of you who wish to take the bike on faster-paced roads. Which, again, yes, is not exactly what the purpose of the bike was meant to be. Now, with my bike the way it was modified, with the exception of the big bore kit that I'm just not going to do at this point, I can travel on highways where I live and be completely 100% fine. But for super fast-paced areas like, say, Vegas, Chicago, Atlanta, and so on, this is definitely not the bike I would personally ever want to take with me, at least without a couple extra pairs of underwear on standby. Another huge plus, a thing I really love about the 350J series bikes and even the 650 platforms, is that these bikes are by no means complicated to work on. Oil changes maybe are a little bit more involved than, say, my Yamaha that just has a simple drain bolt and a spin-on filter, but regardless, these Royals are so basic that even someone like me who's not exactly mechanically inclined can do a valve adjustment in an hour or so with very minimal effort. I did most of the performance parts on this bike as well. The Stage 2, full exhaust, Fuel X light, mirrors, LED brake light, headlight, all that stuff, the list goes on. So maybe if you're in the idea of learning how to wrench on bikes, maybe this is a good gateway option to start on. Let's now focus on my most hated thing about this bike, the stock tires by CEAT. Of all the stock tires out there on all these motorcycles I've ever had the chance to ride, these CEAT ones are up there with being some of the worst. They look decent in person, the tread looks fine, the pattern also doesn't bother me, but looks can be deceiving. The grip on these tires just leaves a lot to be desired. In warmer weather, for whatever reason, I don't really notice this being a problem, though I ride in all temps. So what I've noticed is that when it hits, say, 50 degrees or colder, the tire loses its grip. There will be times where I'll take slow turns, or God forbid there's a little bit of sand or gravel on the road. During those slow speed turns, I can feel the back end start to slip out. If you have the money and or if the tread is low enough, I would without a doubt change these out for just about anything else. Some people may not feel this way. Some people may think that these are totally fine, if not great. I've heard some people praise them. And that's okay. You have all the right to your opinion. I just don't agree with that whatsoever. I think they're absolutely god-awful. The final subject I want to talk about is the engine. Now, this is a mix of good and bad. The bad thing about the 350J is that it is woefully underpowered. But honestly, at this point, who doesn't already know this? Even modified like mine is, it's still underpowered for a 350cc. In reality, the bike more or less has the power of a good 250, kind of close to a 300-ish, and it doesn't really help that the bike is super heavy for its size. Again, something most of us already know about these bikes already. Yeah, sure, the Hunter drops quite a bit of weight. I think there's a 40-pound reduction compared to that of the Classic, and while the Hunter is a bit faster in acceleration, it is still, again, a slow motorcycle for its size. Now, okay, obviously underpowered, and obviously the power-to-weight ratio sucks. Let's be honest about that. But on the flip side here, it is by means a very buttery smooth engine. I've been on many single-cylinder bikes in my life, various size engines as well, and one key negative thing about most, if not all of them, is that when you go up in the RPMs, things start to get buzzy. There's noticeable vibration to the point of it being very uncomfortable, whether that's on your hands, feet, your body in general. I do not have this problem with my Classic 350. I've taken this bike on long trips on highways, going 70 miles an hour for hours on end, and never had I once complained or even noticed any sort of strong, even moderate vibrations. Now, maybe the mods had something to do with this. Perhaps the deluxe footrests play a role in reducing vibrations. Sure, maybe, maybe not. Either way, for an air-cooled single-cylinder, this engine's damn smooth for what it is, and I can appreciate that despite the engine's obvious power flaws. So, there we have it. Some of my favorite and least favorite things about my Royal Enfield Classic 350. I love a bike with character and personality and charm, and this has all that for me. But what about you all, who have a 350 and any various of those models? What's your favorite or least favorite thing about the bike? Let me know below in the comments, and until next time everyone, thank you so much for watching, and as always, ride safe.